Have you ever noticed that some days you wake up feeling exhausted before your day has even started? Not physically, mentally. You slept. You rested. Nothing terrible happened overnight. Yet the moment you open your eyes, it feels as if your mind has already been running for hours. And what's even stranger is that you can't explain why. You tell yourself, maybe I just need more sleep. But deep down, you know that's not the real problem. Because this kind of exhaustion doesn't disappear after 8 hours in bed. It follows you into your morning. It sits beside you at work. It eats away at your focus. And when the day is finally over, it whispers the same lie. Tomorrow will be exactly the same. Here's the part almost nobody talks about. Most people aren't mentally exhausted because they're working too hard. They're mentally exhausted because they're carrying conversations that ended weeks ago, arguments that never happened, expectations that were never fulfilled, and fears that haven't become reality. Their body is living in today, but their mind is trapped somewhere else. And maybe, so is yours. Take a second and think about your day. How many times did you replay a conversation in your head? How many times did you imagine something going wrong before it even had the chance to happen? How many moments did you spend worrying about someone else's opinion instead of living your own life? It seems harmless. After all, they're just thoughts. But that's exactly where the trap begins. Because your mind doesn't measure weight the way your body does. A 10-second memory can become a 10-hour burden. One careless comment can steal an entire week's peace. A single mistake can quietly shape the way you see yourself for years. And the most dangerous part? You slowly begin believing this constant mental pressure is simply what adulthood feels like. It isn't. And that quiet acceptance, that slow surrender to the weight, is perhaps the saddest thing aplasting. As something much deeper is happening. Imagine carrying a glass of water. At first it feels effortless. Hold it for 1 minute and nothing changes. Hold it for 1 hour and your arm begins to ache. Hold it all day, and even though the glass never became heavier, it feels impossible to keep holding. Your thoughts work the same way. The problem isn't always what you're carrying. The problem is that you never put it down. You carry yesterday into today. You carry today's worries into tomorrow. You carry other people's expectations into every decision you make. You carry the weight of people who have long since moved on, people who don't even remember what they said to you. And yet their words live rent-free inside your chest, years later, still doing damage. Eventually, your mind stops asking for peace. It simply learns how to survive without it. And survival is exhausting. But here's something even more uncomfortable. Your brain is not only tired because of what happened to you, it's tired because of the stories you keep telling yourself about what happened. Someone ignored your message. Your mind says, maybe I'm not important. You make one mistake. Your mind whispers, I'm a failure. Someone criticizes you. Suddenly, one opinion becomes your entire identity. Notice what just happened. Reality lasted only a few seconds, but the story continued for hours, sometimes for years. The wound healed, but you kept pressing on it. Every night, every quiet moment, every time the world went still and you were left alone with yourself. That's why two people can experience the exact same situation and walk away completely differently. One learns from it and moves on. The other relives it every night before falling asleep. The event wasn't different. The relationship they formed with the event was. And this is where your exhaustion quietly grows. Not from life itself, but from resisting it. You fight conversations that already ended. You argue with people who aren't even in the room. You prepare for disasters that never arrive. You search for certainty in a world that has never promised it. No wonder your mind feels tired. It's been working overtime trying to control things that were never yours to control. But there's another layer to this that almost everyone misses. Your mind has become addicted to unfinished business. Every unanswered question demands another thought. Every uncertain future demands another prediction. Every emotional wound demands another replay. Your brain believes that if it just thinks long enough, it will finally feel safe. But that's the lie, because overthinking has never created peace. It only creates the illusion of control, and illusions are exhausting to maintain. Think about the last time you couldn't stop thinking before bed. Did all that thinking solve the problem, or did it simply steal your sleep? Most people don't notice this because the process happens so gradually. A little more worry this year, a little more pressure the next, a little more comparison after that, until one day they wake up and wonder why even the smallest task feels overwhelming. It isn't because they're weak. It isn't because they're lazy. It's because their emotional battery has been draining for years without ever being recharged. Think about that. Years. Not days. Not weeks. Years of quietly bleeding energy into thoughts that gave nothing back. Now here's the question that changes everything. If your thoughts are supposed to protect you, why do they leave you feeling so broken? The answer is simple, but it's also deeply uncomfortable. Because your mind was never meant to control every part of your life. It was meant to guide you. Somewhere along the way, you handed it complete authority. Every fear became an emergency. Every opinion became a verdict. Every uncertainty became a crisis. And without realizing it, you stopped living your life and started managing your anxiety instead. You became the guard of a prison you built yourself. And the cruelest part is, the door was never locked. This is why so many people feel busy even when they're sitting still. Their body is resting, but their mind is fighting a war that doesn't exist outside their own imagination. The Stoics noticed this long before smartphones, endless notifications, or social media ever existed. They understood that the greatest burden a person can carry isn't on their shoulders, it's in their perception. And once you understand what that really means, you'll realize that the hidden reason behind your mental exhaustion has almost nothing to do with your circumstances, and almost everything to do with where you've allowed your attention to live. If your attention has been living everywhere except the present moment, then it makes sense why your mind feels like it's constantly running out of energy. Attention is your most valuable resource. Every time you give it to a regret you can't change, you lose a little of your peace. Every time you hand it to someone else's opinion, you give away a piece of your confidence. Every time you spend hours trying to predict an uncertain future, you borrow stress from a tomorrow that hasn't even arrived. And slowly, without realizing it, your life becomes less about living and more about mentally surviving. This is the hidden reason you've been feeling exhausted, not because life has demanded too much from you, but because your mind has demanded that you carry everything, every possibility, every expectation, every disappointment, every outcome. Imagine trying to hold your breath all day long. You couldn't do it. Eventually, your body would force you to let go. But emotionally, most people never let go. They hold on to resentment because they think it protects them. They hold on to guilt because they believe it keeps them responsible. They hold on to fear because they mistake it for preparation. They hold on to old versions of people who no longer exist. They hold on to old versions of themselves, mistakes they made, chances they missed, words they can never take back. And they carry all of it, silently, pretending they're fine. What they don't realize is that every emotion they refuse to release quietly becomes another weight their mind has to carry. And eventually, even simple things begin to feel difficult. Making decisions becomes exhausting. Answering messages feels overwhelming. Small problems feel enormous. Not because you've become weaker, but because you've become overloaded. This is where the Stoics offer something surprisingly practical. They never claimed you could control your thoughts. They knew thoughts would come and go like the weather. What they questioned was something much more important. Why do you keep inviting every thought to stay? Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that the mind becomes colored by the thoughts it repeatedly entertains. Notice, He wasn't talking about the thoughts that appear, he was talking about the ones you continue feeding. That's a choice, not an easy one, but a real one. And maybe that's the most powerful thing anyone has ever told you, that in the middle of all your chaos, all your noise, all your pain, there is still a choice. Small, quiet, but yours. Think about it this way. If a stranger knocked on your front door every 5 minutes, you wouldn't invite every single one inside your home. You would decide who belongs there. Yet inside your own mind, you've been giving unlimited access to every fear, every insecurity, every worst-case scenario that comes knocking. No wonder your inner world feels crowded. No wonder it feels noisy. No wonder you're exhausted, because you've been trying to host guests who were never meant to stay. Here's something worth asking yourself. How much of your day is actually happening, and how much of it exists only inside your imagination? That question can be uncomfortable, but it's also incredibly freeing, because once you recognize the difference, you stop fighting imaginary battles. You stop defending yourself against conversations that never happened. You stop explaining yourself to people who aren't even thinking about you. You stop carrying expectations that nobody asked you to carry, and something remarkable begins to happen. Your mind finally has room to breathe. For the first time in a long time, there is silence, not emptiness, silence. And in that silence, you remember what it felt like to simply exist, without performing, without defending, without exhausting yourself trying to be enough. Now let's talk about what real mental strength actually looks like. Most people imagine strength as never feeling anxious, never doubting yourself, never getting hurt, but that's not strength. That's fantasy. Real strength is noticing your thoughts without becoming their prisoner. It's feeling disappointment without allowing it to define your identity. It's accepting uncertainty without demanding impossible guarantees. It's choosing your response instead of reacting to every emotion that passes through you. Real strength is sitting with pain and not letting it make your decisions. It is grieving without collapsing. It is bending without breaking. It is being human, fully, honestly human, and still choosing to move forward. Epictetus understood this better than most. He believed that while we cannot control everything that happens, we can always work on the way we respond. That single shift changes your entire relationship with life. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin asking, "What's the wisest response available to me right now?" Instead of trying to control people, you focus on your character. Instead of chasing constant approval, you build quiet self-respect. Instead of exhausting yourself trying to predict every outcome, you learn to trust your ability to handle whatever comes. That doesn't make life easier overnight. It makes you stronger, and strength creates peace that circumstances never can. One day you'll notice something that once seemed impossible. The same situation that used to keep you awake all night barely stays in your mind for a few minutes. Not because you've stopped caring, because you've stopped clinging. Because you finally understood that clinging to pain doesn't honor what you've been through. It only delays who you're meant to become. You've learned that every thought deserves to be noticed, but not every thought deserves to be believed. You've learned that every emotion deserves compassion, but not every emotion deserves control over your decisions. You've learned that peace isn't something you find somewhere in the future. It's something you protect in the present. So the next time your mind starts replaying old conversations, pause. The next time fear begins writing stories about a future that doesn't exist, pause. The next time you catch yourself carrying emotional weight that doesn't belong to today, pause. Ask yourself one simple question. Is this helping me live, or is it only helping me worry? That one question has the power to interrupt years of unconscious thinking, and over time, those small interruptions become a new way of living. You'll still have difficult days. You'll still experience uncertainty. You'll still make mistakes. You will still cry at 2 a.m. sometimes and not know exactly why. You will still have moments where the weight feels unbearable, and that's okay. That's what being alive feels like. But you will no longer be destroyed by it. But your mind will no longer treat every challenge like a personal catastrophe. Instead, it will become what it was always meant to be. A guide, not a prison. So, if you've been wondering why you're always mentally exhausted, remember this. The greatest drain on your energy isn't always the life you're living. It's the life your mind keeps inventing. The moment you stop carrying yesterday, stop fearing tomorrow, and return your attention to what you can actually influence today, you don't just feel less exhausted. You become free. Not because the world finally changed, but because for the first time in a long time, you stopped waiting for it to. Your mind did.